All right, what's up, innovators and kingdom builders? You're listening to the Hype Pod, real conversations on tech, innovation, and culture trends from a faith-filled perspective. This is episode 52.
52. Wow.
We got Pastor Adam on my
Hello.
left. I'm your host, Arun, and we got a special guest, Jeremy Maranitch, here
Jeremy.
today.
Hey.
Let's
Welcome,
go.
welcome. So Jeremy has been on a fascinating journey that took you from the fitness world from Texas, and then here to the Silicon Valley where you're selling tech to some of the biggest tech founders out there. You're at the intersection of the cutting edge of AI and ML at Snowflake's data cloud platform. But today, I think we're not going to be too much of like nerding out on the tech. I want to talk about this from like the sales, the partnership, the human side of it, the skills that can be transferable across any kind of area, really. But it's funny because as we were talking on Monday about the podcast and stuff, we didn't really talk about your fitness background and stuff. And this morning when I went to the gym as usual, I hurt my back. And I was like, man, this really sucks that I hurt my back right before the podcast. And I was like, well, we have a fitness expert coming in.
Perfect.
So what did I do wrong? Exactly. So I did squats this morning. Usually, like I normally do. I think as you get older, I just stop stretching.
You're not even old.
I'm getting old, you know?
I'll tell you exactly what happened.
Yeah. My lower back hurts. Yeah. Just not stretching. But luckily, this podcast is all seated, so you won't even notice.
Are you still in pain?
No, I started stretching after.
Okay.
Before the pod.
Right.
Okay.
Didn't stretch before I lifted. I stretched it after I got hurt. You know?
Is that essential? Like, is that really essential, the pre-stretch?
It's so funny. It depends who you ask.
Oh, yeah.
You can ask 10 different trainers. They will all give you a different philosophy.
That's why I'm asking.
Based on their background.
Yeah, because I feel like I've got contrary information at different times.
I personally don't stretch. I do mobility.
Okay.
I warm up my ankles, my hips, my shoulders, and my spine. And that's it. Other than that, I just prep for the movement I'm going to do.
So that's different from stretching your muscles. You're warming up your joints.
Getting ready and prep for the movement I'm going to do.
I like it.
Yeah, that's how I do it. It's also a little bit, I view it as a little bit lazier, faster way. It's been working for me so far.
Yeah, you're not hurt, are you?
I'm not hurt right now.
Arun is.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. What got you into exercise science at UT, and then how did you go from there into what you're currently doing with partnerships?
It's
sales?
funny. Personal training was actually a lazy move. I was going to go into physical therapy. That was my goal. And then I followed my wife out here. I didn't want to leave Austin, Texas. And she got a job at Google. And I said, okay, technically I'm a certified personal trainer right now.
Right.
I can work anywhere. And so when I said, we're gonna be out here for 2 years and going back, and I'll just find a really high-end gym to go work out of. I liked Equinox. That's where I was working when we first landed. And I loved their education system because that was my background. Because I had a degree, I actually coached the personal trainers and then at-risk clients that were coming in. I kind of built this brand to work with people coming out of rehab and essentially helping them kind of bridge rehab usually back into something like CrossFit.
So people who hurt their backs doing squats, for instance.
Backs and shoulders all day. Hey, in the Silicon Valley, it's low backs. Down in SoCal, it's always aesthetics. So there's a whole different persona that I learned when I moved out here.
Why is it low backs?
Come on, you know.
I think everyone's sitting at their laptops coding away. I think everyone...
Sore back means heavy front.
Yeah, exactly. If they can walk away pain-free, they will pay you as much as you ask for.
Wow.
Out here.
Okay.
Down in SoCal, clients they want the six-pack. It's more aesthetic. So it's very interesting because I trained personal trainers up here and personal trainers down in LA, and none of them would listen to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they didn't care. They were aspiring actors, most of them.
Yeah.
So they did not care about the education side of the house.
No, they just want to look good.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how we approach it down in SoCal.
Oh, yeah?
Down where I am in Southern California. We're all about the six-pack.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's interesting because I know a bit of your background because in high school you were a cross-country runner as well, right? So fitness was kind of like your thing. Is that how you and Mariah, because you followed Mariah out here, she got a job at Google, is that how you first connected? Because you might not know this, they're like high school sweethearts. You didn't know that?
Yeah. I've heard the story.
Since we were sophomores, she was
That's pretty rare.
Yeah.
It is, well, yes, rare out here.
Yeah.
I have quite a few friends that are high school sweethearts, actually.
Oh yeah, in Texas. I mean,
Texas is like the story,
you
right?
can marry someone in your family.
Yeah.
You know, like that's common, but
Not that south.
Wait,
Okay.
that's
Alabama.
North
Right,
and east
sorry.
of states, Northeast of a few states.
Right. Okay, Texas a little progressive. You marry someone in high school, not someone in your family. But that's so it's rare out here.
It is. A lot of people get very surprised when we say that we've been dating since we were sophomores.
Yeah.
And we met, I think cross country is what brought us together a bit. Funny enough, she was actually dating a friend of mine.
That's
like
not funny.
In our group. Not funny for him. Yeah. I mean, it turned out when you look at what he's doing, he's playing with reptiles and stuff. So
what a loser. Yeah. Sorry, no, if you're listening, playing with reptiles is, fun. Cool. That's great.
But it's, but no, I mean, me and my buddy still we were still friends and everything, but
you're still friends with this crocodile guy?
Not today. Not today. We don't talk. We're not connected as much anymore.
I wouldn't either.
Constant reminder.
He left. He's trying to live a different life. No.
Exactly.
No. So we cross country is what brought us together.
Yep.
And then she actually got into cross country as well. Mm-hmm. She was a big runner, and then that was kind of the crux of our entire relationship was fitness.
Yep.
Fitness and exercise. We did it through college together.
Yep.
We always exercised together. And then still, even today, less so probably with kids, we're always balancing that.
Yeah.
Taking turns working out.
Yeah. So. And you got a bunch as well.
We do. We've got 3 kids, all girls, 4th on the way.
We got a couple of girl dads here.
Yeah, we do.
Right. A couple of girl dads. We should chat about it. Yeah, I mean, I got to get my first kid, and we'll see what it is.
There we go.
Just
Why
healthy,
wait? Why
healthy
wait?
and ready. If it's a girl, then I'm coming to you guys. I'm coming to you guys first. Because, but I don't know. I mean, we could talk about the girl dad thing, but I don't know. It seems like a scary time to be a girl dad.
Or a dad.
Or a dad in general.
Why specifically a girl dad?
I don't know. It's just like there's just so much things happening on the internet right now. It's just
I mean, I tell you, if you're afraid, then don't bother.
Yeah.
Arun, it takes a fearless, courageous, handsome man to be a girl dad.
Wow.
Only the best of the best.
I'm going down to SoCal, work on aesthetics, and I'll be ready.
But okay, so let's talk then. So you're in Texas. You're in Tyler, Texas. Mm-hmm. And Mariah gets hired at Google, which means you've got a choice to make. You come out here and you make a living while she's got a career.
Mm-hmm. Then the funny thing about that was I was interning. So we were just wrapping up college, went back to Tyler for maybe a month or two right after we graduated. But I was doing an internship where I had a local gym owner that was about to retire and pass his whole gym and clientele off to me.
Oh, wow.
And I was going to pay him a royalty.
Okay.
It was going to be mine. I was going to just pass off the business.
Yep.
I had been working under him and learning the business side of it. So for me, I was like, this is very rare for a personal trainer to just kind of slide in
straight
to
in
business ownership with an established clientele. Different areas of the gym were being rented out by yoga instructors or chiropractors, so it was a multi-purpose facility. And so very rarely, I didn't want to walk away from that. That was very lucrative for somebody with a personal training degree, and I had an exercise science degree.
Right.
Usually you'll want to go on, if you're going to be an educator, you'll want to go on to like chiropractic school, some master's or PhD program, doctorate degree, to go on and further your training, whatever it may be. And so that was what I did not want to walk away from. This was an established business that I could slide right into immediately and knew how to operate.
So what was the decision then? You guys are married. You're not married.
Not married. Almost broke up with her.
You almost broke up.
When she said, I want to go out there.
I'm going to California. You didn't like California, right?
I didn't like California.
Yeah.
I just things I had heard of. There's most people that have never left Texas, I would say. I always joke about this when I'm on and speak. It's like greatest country that exists on planet Earth. Generally, it's people that haven't left experiencing anything outside of Texas. It is great. It's a great state. I love it. But I didn't want to leave. I loved Austin. Austin was fantastic. It was before it really blew up, and then I probably thought about it for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? Let's did some more searching in terms of what's the future look like between us. And I think that was one of those things. I'm a creature of habit, and I was like, I love her. This is amazing. I want to figure out what this is. Who am I to say no to this situation? If I was the one that said, don't go check out technology, don't go check out Google. And that was a big one to say, who am I to miss this opportunity?
Yeah, right.
So I said, other opportunities for me will come.
Wow.
Let's jump in.
So that's a big sacrifice, that step.
Huge sacrifice.
And then let's talk about this then, because that's not an easy trajectory to go from fitness to technology. Right. Especially the kind of tech that you're in now. Can you weave that journey together? I mean, I've heard it a couple of times, but I think it's so fascinating. I want to hear it again.
Yeah. So we had to do onboarding for the first 2 weeks just to get ramped up on the Equinox training philosophy. So they have a whole tiering system for trainers, and you go to the next tier when you've hit a certain threshold in your business, but also when you pass their education curriculum. And it starts out with pretty basic 101 anatomy physiology, which I was very equipped to do with my degree. So I breezed through that pretty quickly, but for those first 2 weeks, I think I got paid $297.
Wow.
And we had just enough money for last month's rent, essentially, and the next one. And so I said, I need to hit it hard now and ramp clients up, because it was 100% commission on that side of it. So I had to ramp my business up first and establish myself. So after a year, I had ramped up to doing 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. straight through with clients and training the personal trainers. I eventually started taking them through the tiering system, educating them on the anatomy, physiology, special populations, pregnant women, diabetics, etc. I was burned out. Because I was having to miss church because clients I had Sunday mornings, Adam Saturdays. I was at their mercy of their schedule, which is mornings and afternoons or late nights usually. So I essentially just burned out at that point. So 6 days a week on average, sometimes 7. I wasn't even exercising myself. Through that time, I had acquired some pretty high-profile clients that I didn't know were high-profile.
Gotcha.
One was the CEO at Snowflake at the time when it was still in stealth mode. And then the other two that he forced them to train with me were the 2 co-founders, Terry and Benoit, which was pretty cool.
Wow.
You would have never known that they were founders. Bob was definitely evangelizing Snowflake all the time, and I had no clue Amazon even had a services side of the business. I thought it was just Amazon.com. That's how green I was going into technology.
That's amazing.
And so I pretty much told him I had applied to USF, their sport MBA program, got accepted into it because I wanted to go get into one of the sports teams eventually. This is when all the sports were popping off too. 10 years ago, every team here was popping off. At least getting sports. Everyone was popping off, which was really cool. And so I thought that was going to be the path. Told them, hey, I'm burned out. I'm leaving. And he goes, hold on, I like your hustle around here, and you can hit it hard. You're the product. You take no's all the time. I see you as you're trying to build your business. And what he saw was build your pipeline, build your clientele. You get commission from this. I see you hustling all the time. Except you're the product, and they say no to you. Can you pick up the phone and dial 100 people each day? If you do that, don't go throw your money at grad school. Try this out for 6 months. It's going to be an amazing technology, an amazing product. But we know you can pick the phone up 100 times and just hit it hard. We've seen you hustle. We've talked. We think you would be fantastic. What do you think?
100 reps?
So I was like, yeah, I can do that. Talked to Mariah. It was going to be a little bit of a pay cut for the entry-level sales role because it was just setting up meetings. I call smiling and dialing is what we did. So you catch a lot of grief from people when they don't want to be reached out to. And we made the decision, let's take a bet. We had no clue what the company was going to become. I was so green again. I didn't know what a white paper was. Anything.
So where was the company at that stage?
When the week I joined, and this was actually funny, I told them I had to start a week later because I was going to propose to Mariah in Tahoe. That week I was quitting. So I started right after I proposed to her because I realized, hey, we're moving so fast in the Bay Area. I need to do what I'm intending to do with her before we just start going wild and getting distracted and, with work and everything else, just trying to survive at the time. And so I came in. Sorry, what was the question?
What stage was the company at?
So we just came out of stealth mode the week I started.
Okay.
We just launched the website publicly. We were closing that first quarter of private selling. And so I think we did at the time, it was like that whole first year, because I started October, about $2 million is what we did in sales.
That was so early.
Let's talk about the skills, though, that translated from you being a personal trainer. You're kind of training these people. You have people skills. Then your early kind of role as like cold calling and sales. Like, what did you take to make you successful in that role?
It's actually funny because so many people have the sales skill, and it was really just the ability to hustle, go have a conversation, and find a problem that somebody has that you can help with. Whether it's an expertise in personal training, I know what this person's trying to accomplish over here because I see how they're working out. I'm going to go ask them some questions, what they're trying to achieve in their goals. Is it a six-pack? Is it a stronger back? Is it what are you healing yourself? You're kind of limping around. Listen, dragging some weights around. It just starts with asking questions, like what their goals are, and see if I can offer some help. I think that was one of those things. I call it qualifying, qualifying and disqualifying.
Where did you learn that?
It was funny. It was taught to us at Equinox. They taught us. They said, "Here's the 3 objections. Everything comes down to." So we used to do what you call Hunger Games. We would all get the personal trainers that were not full time, which was 25 sessions a week with clients. And the Hunger Games was go out and find people at the busiest times in the gym and see if you can get them signed up for first meetings. Say you're going to do like the skin calipers. Do things like give them like the BMI measurements, do the whole, do the whole motion to wow them, right? With our technology and stuff we had. And so we just had to go up, and half the time for 30 minutes straight, you're just taking nose. You have people just giving you not the middle finger, but giving you the finger of like,
if you're on the audio podcast,
it's more the point, like not right now. And because they got their headphones in, they don't want to be distracted. So you're just you're taking more losses than wins most of the time. For every 15, 20 people you talk to, one person might actually have a conversation with you.
Why didn't that discourage you? Taking that many no's.
I didn't have the opportunity to. I had to. I had to do it.
You were hustling.
I had to be a certain level, and when you only make for your first paycheck $290, and you can't afford certain things. We got all of our furniture off of free Craigslist. When we first moved here, we couldn't afford furniture. When you're at that point where you can't afford anything, that doesn't deter you. And that was kind of my thing. I was sleeping on the couch in the middle of the day because if I want to find a client at 3 p.m., I got to figure out who's in the gym at 3 p.m. That's their schedule. And so that's how I thought about it. How do I fill my day up and get to this threshold, make this amount of money to be able to pay for rent, to be able to have food, go out to eat, all these fun things. So it was
go
really
to Tahoe and snowboarding.
Yeah, exactly. It was a hunger that didn't come till later. It didn't come till later. And so we had to actually build the clientele. So it was the ability to just go and not take it personal. And I think after you take no so many times to the face, you learn that. It's still never easy. Hearing no is never easy.
I want to kind of like dig into like the role of like a salesperson, because what differentiates like you at the car salesman is that like idea of like this like really sleazy kind of like I'm just pushing my thing versus somebody that's genuinely like looking out for the person they're trying to sell to, and it's like if this is for you, I'll show you that story that you're looking for.
It's funny. I think sales is the most beautiful thing when it's done well. But most people have a strong distaste for sales because they probably are getting cold calls on their cell phones like we're all getting nowadays from telemarketers or whomever. You probably have the used car salesman. There's great car salesmen out there, but it's more of the just wheel and deal, make a deal, and only one side really benefits and wins. Somebody loses. That's never a good sell. If not, all parties are walking away feeling like they did well. And so on the sales side, when you actually have a product or a service and you can find somebody that has a problem that can solve, and you can come to an agreement as to how to get it done, whether it's monetary or whether you're driving an idea in a room of people, that's the most beautiful thing ever when you can come to that.
And would you say that you believed in the product back then as well? Like, did you feel like, oh man, I'm not pushing something I don't believe in versus, no, I believe this is a great solution?
I did. It took me a little bit to learn it, to understand what I was doing. But as people told me as I saw it on the slides, heard other seasoned sellers talking about it, and hearing what the customer testimony was before and after, that was enough proof in the pudding. And I tell people, even other companies all day, they're like, well, I don't know if that product's going to be good. I was like, well, they have some pretty big names, and there's before and afters of how the product is being leveraged. Who are you to actually say that that's not a good product, that's not a good company? They have customer testimonies. And that's the biggest thing, I think. If you can understand and get customers talking about it, you're actually having the customer do most of the selling for you at that point, doing references. I even think, I sell tech, used to sell personal training. I think in some cases, and you may not agree with it, I think you're a great salesman.
I definitely am. What do you want?
What do you want to buy? But I mean, in the faith space.
In the faith space, right?
Right.
There's some interesting things about that dynamic. It's before Christ, after Christ. Whether you want to put a label of, like,
we've got great testimonials.
Great testimonies, right? I hear them all the time with baptisms when you hear people why they're doing it.
Exactly.
And so I think it's those are amazing opportunities, and I think that's what great sales looks like when it's a great product and it can really solve pain for people or organizations.
Yeah, Pastor Adam, do you have anything where you kind of see that in yourself as like you've learned some good sales tactics? Maybe
I used to do phone sales. So there was a season in my career early on when I was a youth pastor, which means you can't survive on a youth pastor salary. So you have to pick up, cleaning, janitorial, and phone sales, right? So you're doing like the lowest of low. And I feel like, God bless any phone salesman out there, but that's a pretty low tier sales, entry sales. But, there was obviously incentives back then, because this was like the convergence from BlackBerry to iPhone. That was the competitive market, right? And so you got zero commission on selling an iPhone because they would sell themselves. but you would get all the commission on selling a BlackBerry. And so there was the challenge right there is like, that I struggled with back then is because I did not believe in the BlackBerry. I was like absolutely amazed with this new product called the iPhone. Everything for a lot of people who don't understand what that transition was like from buttons, the BlackBerry, what sold it was the full QWERTY keyboard.
Right.
But then to go like buttonless, and it was such an amazing product. Even though I get zero commission, I had to push the iPhone.
Right.
Just because I believed in that product. And I think for me, that's where I realized I don't think I am good at sales unless I genuinely believe in the product. And that's why I asked you that question. Like, did you believe in the product? Because once I believe in it, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna present this.
Right.
I think that's one of the things I look at. If I look out at other companies I want to go join in the future. If you're a sales executive or a career seller, you want to have a strong product backing you out there.
Yes.
And it's so funny to hear how many sales professionals have always had bad products that they're selling, and they can still sell it.
Right.
It's really interesting just hearing some of the people that joined Snowflake. That was the first product they had ever sold that worked.
Right.
Some of them had been selling since the 80s.
Right.
I knew one guy, he was selling vacuums here in Silicon Valley, Hoover Vacs, and then he somehow got into selling data warehouses, big server machines, and then eventually he started selling at Snowflake, and he's like, this is the first product that's actually working, I can trust, and I can really go in with full confidence talking to the customer, and I'm not trying to be
sell you
good enough against competitors.
Exactly.
And so this is a problem that wasn't really solved at the time right? Or were there big competitors that were doing this kind of centralizing data in these data warehouses?
There was people talking about it. So, when you think about the on-premise people, think of like Oracle, IBM was a big one. They kind of sold off some of their products that we competed with that were independent, but the cloud vendors were the biggest one. And that's where we started, was selling against Amazon, which was also a partner I used to manage. So it was like co-opetition. We're still helping Amazon make money because we were hosted in Amazon's cloud, but we were also pit-pocketing them.
Of course.
We were letting Amazon get people to the cloud, and then we pit-pocket them.
Right.
So we weren't making friends with our partners at the time. Great partnership now, probably our best one. But it's there was a lot of
just for the record, really
just
great relationship now.
They didn't have a program that we would sit in as a partner. We just looked like a growing customer to them, which was funny. But we had a lot of people. Amazon was very credible in the cloud data warehouse wars at the time. Google had their offering. They weren't as mature, and then Microsoft had theirs that they had put in. So I'd say those were the two biggest ones. But since we were in Amazon only, we fully focused our attention in that area. Right.
So did you feel like the people that you were calling knew about the problem they had, or was it like you convincing them this is like a problem that you don't even foresee, and then now with us you can do something more?
We knew the problem they had. Nobody believed us because it hadn't been done yet.
Right. So that's a very hard thing to sell.
It is. Yeah. It is, because most of the time I had somebody say, Jeremy, how do you spell your last name? I was like, Maran, and I hear him typing. I was like, oh, he's looking me up on LinkedIn. And he's like, so I have a PhD in databases for the last 15 years, and you've been at Snowflake, and you were a personal trainer 2 months ago. What are you going to teach me today about a data warehouse?
Right.
I was
there you go.
Snookered.
I was like, oh, it's painful. So I said, but then you had to try to get them on the phone and ask them questions and get over those things. But it was very tough. Nobody believed us. Open source Hadoop and Cloudera were still growing in the central region of the U.S. and also southeast. Amazon was definitely making its way everywhere here on the West Coast. That was adopting it, especially Silicon Valley, and then also up in the New York regions.
So tell me about this then. What's that education curve from you've just transitioned industries? Now, you're taking some core elements of sales, talking to people, but there's still a huge product gap. I mean, you just phone somebody who's 15 years data analyst or scientist or whatever they are, and now you're trying to sell them something. What is that education curve or runway like until you feel like you're actually effective? Or is it just knowing enough to be dangerous?
For me, I started getting more dangerous when I knew just how to set the hook. I wasn't trying to close them on the call. I think that's what I was trying to do for my personal training background, because I had 2 sessions to close that business and get them to cut me a check on the Equinox side. But here, software sales can be very long. It could be as short as a week, but it can also take over a year as well. and then implementing the product takes even longer sometimes, depending on the organization and what you're selling. So when I realized everyone's role in the sales process, my goal is to just set the hook and get the meeting, let my account executive and my sales engineer come in and do what they know how to do, which is really dig in with the credibility they have. They can showcase the product and really dig into qualifying this opportunity.
So you just found out where to hand it off.
Exactly. Once I learned what my lane was, I just started developing myself in that area.
That's good.
Here's how I set the hook. If it's this persona, ask these questions, and then when they start to take me down a rabbit hole, defer, set the meeting. I had to learn my role really well and my pass-off moments and stick to the line. Even as I continued to ramp up in my knowledge to where I would be able to bridge into the account executive role, it was still play your role and set your team up for success.
I love this. This is as good as a Silicon Valley Cinderella story as I've ever heard of it, who comes out in a fitness, but then ends up in technology. The doorway was sales, but you've even moved even further into technology now. Talk about that.
Yeah, so about a year or maybe 2 years into Snowflake, I've been there for 10 years almost. I caught an interest in our technology partners. So I started working with some of our partners that connect to Snowflake. And for people listening, it's either Snowflake's pretty pointless if there's data not flowing into it, or companies that or a company that's actually visualizing that data in a graph or a report form. And so we had to create these partnerships. We were the hub, and they were all the spokes essentially. And so we focused on building out those partnerships outside of Snowflake, and that kind of caught my attention of how to work with them from a sales standpoint, which I was strong at that point. I got to learn the product, how they integrate with us, what does a good integration look like, and then the marketing side as well. How do we evangelize our better together story for customers? Because Snowflake just stores data at the time. It was just a place to store data much more efficiently, and it had a great engine to support a bunch of users, to send queries and refresh dashboards and all of those. And so it was a complete story. That took my attention, and I built a relationship with our head of business development, and I had the opportunity to go deeper into the sales side or transition into business development or partnerships.
And that was exciting to you?
That was exciting because there's really cool companies we were working with at the time.
What I'm guessing here, and I don't know if you're picking this up, but there's a bit of a relational
100%
cycle that you run here. You friends with the CEO just because of gym connection, and then your next move is relational equity that you got with the biz dev manager. How much does that relational equity play into people's upward trajectory these days, especially with that conflict still of remote work and all those kinds of things? How much of that is FaceTime built in the office that has gotten you the promotion?
Oh, 100% FaceTime in the office. Even today, I'm back in the office 5 days a week. I like being in the office.
But you have the option to be remote.
I have the option. I can go in as much or as little
I'm
as I
convinced
want.
this is like people shooting themselves in the foot by looking early in life to take convenience.
100%.
Like, I want to be remote. I want to be out of the office. But you're literally stemming your growth. You're stopping your growth because you're missing all the relational equity that still seems very, very valid today.
No, 100%. I think most of my colleagues that are working remote today, I get things done faster because I can walk over to someone's desk. Or at lunch, I hear of a new initiative coming up, and I plug my partners in before anybody else hears about it. And so if it's like a guinea pig, product initiative we're going to roll out, then I know which of my partners are good at guinea pig exercises. There's going to be some, there's going to be some issues with the product, and we're going to smooth it out, but I get them first in so they get first go to market opportunity. And it's not because I'm better, it's just because I'm here locally. And I get to talk to people and hear things before my colleagues in different states or different countries hear about it.
Well, I feel like in an industry like technology industry or whether it's, crypto, AI, whatever industry, I think it's so competitive. You need edge. You need whatever edge you can get, and I don't think there is any edge like proximity. Just 100%. Being a name and a face from your whether it's your manager or even the CEO if you're in a smaller company or whatever. Just even the invitation, hey, let's go get coffee, let's get drinks after work. You know,
most of my best moments were because I bumped into somebody. It wasn't a meeting I had scheduled. If I look at the last 10 years, the best moments, whether it was promotion opportunity, going into business development, or being able to get that promotion over the line, or get my partners involved ahead of their competitors that we also work with, it was because simply I was standing in the lobby, I was in the office, somebody came over and asked me a question, and we just started going back and forth. All of those opportunities presented very, I'd say, casually in that sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so hang on. You're presenting it casually.
Yeah.
But I know you, Jeremy. There's some very intentional. You're very intentional about building a relationship. I want to help people out. Okay, because I feel like this is a very undervalued element, and maybe a lot of remote work is social awkwardness, and so people are like, I don't want to be around people, but they're missing opportunities. How do you, if you were to maybe analyze, what could you do intentionally to overcome that social anxiety or to be present? What have you done to build those relationships in that work, I guess, arena?
I think my shyness actually helps because I just like to listen to people talk. I actually don't like talking myself.
That's
great
cool.
Dinners for me is if I barely say anything and people love to just talk and share. Oftentimes they'll walk away saying, that was amazing.
100%.
People love talking.
They love talking about themselves.
Yeah.
And so as they continue to talk about like projects they're working on, and you just insert little statements because you're tuning into what's going on. And it's like, hey, I'm trying to work on this and I can't solve this. So it's like, I have a partner that can solve that actually.
Wow.
Let's think about this. Very simple stuff, but just listening, I think goes the longest way.
Okay.
I think that's what's helped me out at least, and also
I actually feel like that's going to be helpful for people.
I will tell you, that is the first piece of advice that Pastor Adam gave me before I even hopped on the podcast. He said, don't worry about anything. Just be more interested in the person across from you than you are in yourself. And that's it. Yeah. And that's really all it is.
Yeah.
And
People
if you
love that.
They love talking about themselves.
They do love talking about themselves.
They do.
And you said it'd be helpful.
It's helpful because most people everybody, no matter what job you're at or what industry, people need help, and if you help them, it will come back tenfold. And I don't think I'm not doing that looking for a favor to come back.
Oh, but they owe you.
I just like helping people.
Yeah.
I actually love watching people get the win. It's why I got into personal training. I like to see people develop. I can see it real time.
Yep.
So, an elderly lady that couldn't step up onto a box, now she can. She's not tripping in her house anymore. Or somebody that's been trying to solve something really hard at Snowflake, and I was able to have a partner help get them over the line with something. Yeah. And that helped them get the win, which got them promoted. Right. And oftentimes it came back to me somehow.
So building relational equity comes from relational investments.
Exactly.
You got to make those investments. You got the equity that you can draw on later.
Yeah, and I want to touch on something because it's not just the work. Like you're in person, you're chatting about work, but it's actually the non-work stuff that can really build those really strong relationships that then ends up helping you become more than just a colleague. You're like a person, a friend, and that's what gets you the next step. It's kind of like how you got the first role, right? He knew about your situation outside just being a personal trainer. It was like, oh, I'm going to UCSF or whatever. I'm going to try and take this next step in my career. It's like, oh, before you do that, now I have this opportunity that you might be interested in because you're looking for it. But if you never share anything personal about yourself,
that's right.
You're never going to bring somebody into your world. Right?
There were so many times I went to coffee and I had 30 minutes to get something done. And I knew I was going to work late that night because I was helping somebody out. I wasted so many hours in the early days in Snowflake, and sometimes still today, where I will get caught up in a conversation and I'll be intentional with the discussion to not cut away and say, oh, sorry, can't talk right now. And I'll do that knowing it's going to create some work debt for me on the backside. And though it'll make some things in my life a little bit harder or the day longer, every time I've probably done that or consistently do that, and I still do it today, it helps people. You see them get the win, and though it creates maybe some short-term extra work for you, when you look at the next, because I don't think about moving companies every 2 years, 1 year. Like, it's an investment. If I could be at a company every 10 years, that's perfect for me. Things will eventually start to come back, and people will help you if you're in a place of need. Wow. And that's how I approach it. But I think that's how sales should be done too.
It's so funny how this feels so innovative, but it's actually just old-fashioned, like investing in people, relational.
It is. Yeah, investing in people and see it come to fruition. Oftentimes, it'll come back in some way, shape, or form. Ways you may expect and ways you may not.
Why do you think this is a lost art?
I think everybody. We live in a consumer world.
Yeah.
I think everybody is consumed in their world. The biggest thing that was funny to me is in the Bay Area, most people outside of church, most people won't stop and just have a conversation. Or it's weird if somebody's stopping you on the sidewalk. You're like, at first you get defensive. Yeah. Why is this person approaching me?
Yeah.
What's about to be thrown at me? Type of situation.
It's funny because this is actually it's so kingdom. Like right now we're recording this on Holy Wednesday because it's about to be Easter this weekend, and if you mark today in Scripture, today is the day where there's a discussion between the disciples really around the importance in the kingdom, like who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom. It's like a reoccurring theme that the disciples kept arguing right after Jesus shares stuff. Then they start arguing, and it's where Jesus says, hey, in the kingdom, it's about the least is the greatest. You come to serve, not be served. And so that paradigm, I think, gives an edge to kingdom entrepreneurs who are going to go into an environment like a corporate office, a technology park, whatever it is, and be like, hey, I'm here to serve. I'm not going to look to gain my own self or talk about me all the time. But the pathway to promotion is literally serving others. And it's like a kingdom concept.
Absolutely. Yeah. We just had a big reorg recently, and one of the leaders that took over, because of his relationships with the team he had been working with, he promoted all those individuals to different roles because they were his lieutenants or generals, however you want to say it. But that was people that were close in relationship, people that had trust with him. And oftentimes in tech, when an executive leaves, that executive brings their team with them, and they move, like especially sales teams, like they move team. In a pod. They move together,
like loyal.
We've had that so many different times across so many different organizations. We're seeing a lot of Google people come over on the engineering side with our new CEO.
Sorry, Google.
From a year ago. Same thing with he was our new alliance individual.
Yep.
His team came with him, but people move with people they trust.
Wow.
And they'll take care of their crew. But that happens everywhere in technology from what I've seen.
Man, it's a
especially
cutthroat
on the
business.
go-to-market teams.
Speaking of cutthroat business, I actually want to take this to the next step because one thing about partnerships and making a deal is like to make a deal, you need to have some sort of leverage. It's all nice, being there to help other people, but to make a good deal in business, somebody's usually winning, somebody's usually losing. In some ways. But there are, some people say you can't have this win-win. I'm giving you something, you're giving me something. Some people view what's happening right now with tariffs, for example. Like it's a leverage technique for Trump. He's like going out there and he's saying, well, I'm going to put these tariffs. We're going to have to come to the table and we're going to have to make a deal. How do you guys see that balance, being somebody that's of faith, that's trying to figure out, I need to be ethical. I need to do the right thing here. But then understanding there's a business side of this and I do need to use this leverage to make a deal in some way.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll let you jump in.
I think that's the basics of negotiation and the art of a deal. There's a really good negotiation podcast. I can't even remember it, but there's this guy who's a negotiator, and he talks about deal making all the time because that's what a negotiator does. They're just trying to make a deal to get everyone out safe or diffuse a situation. And really, what it is, if you've got nothing to offer, first you've got to find out what they want.
Right.
Because otherwise, I could try and offer you a bunch of things, but if it's not what you want, then it's useless conversation. And so once you find out what they want, then you got to use that as leverage to get what you want. That's in a negotiation. I think when it comes to the tariffs, what I'm looking at is a very interesting reaction by a lot of experienced business people who are critical about the tariff situation, when what I'm realizing, it's not that you disagree with the tariff deal making, it's that it doesn't line up with your political persuasion and just suits really what you want to be able to, damage something. But really what I'm seeing is the fruit right now is that in these initial shock and awe of high tariffs that are going to come out, it's actually brought people to the table who are willing to negotiate, who were more than fine just kind of like jamming America with high tariffs beforehand. So I think it's like it's not actually a new thing. The playbook that President Trump is rolling out is a classic negotiation tactic in business. Right. In my opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. And it's funny how it works. In my time in technology, I've been able to see how businesses operate, whether it's a consumer goods or a technology, a service company, a media and entertainment company. You see how they operate. And it's interesting, the loudest ones are also sometimes the people that don't have enough margin, and these tariffs really hurt business, whether it's like the supply chain side. So there is 100% a lot of leverage with how people operate their businesses and how it hurts.
I mean, it does, right? Yeah. And I've heard it being called a shakedown, but I mean, tell me a business deal that isn't some level of a shakedown. Right. Like there is always a, all right, well, I've got to reassess my position here. I think, I don't know, what's your take?
No. I think it was like it's the exact opposite initially, right? Initially, it was the U.S. was thriving, and it was how can we help the global economy out? We can take on these clearly unfair deals to help these other countries out. China was a big one. We wanted to bring them in, make them like increase their economy, bring them into the World Trade Organization,
yes,
help improve their situation. But then that kind of just ran amok. Like we just didn't control that situation.
Yeah.
And now it's like we need a reset. And you can't go back to these people and say, oh, can you please help us now? They're not going to do that. You need to create some leverage to then bring them to the table to have these conversations. So I think it totally makes sense.
But I think it was actually not just helping. I think it ended up being a bad deal for America.
Yeah. Oh yeah. These were all of these deals are like really bad deals for America.
Yeah. And so, I think what we're seeing is a lot of people comment from ignorance, not understanding how bad of a deal this was for America.
Yeah.
And yet America's in the prime position to renegotiate these deals. But no one is going to do what America did. America had this, I think it was under maybe the Clinton administration.
Potentially,
that they wanted to, open up global trade and, so we'll open our arms. But then that was a bad deal for America because we just got taken advantage of. But no other country is going, hey, we want to do that.
Right.
They're always thinking their country first. But it's funny to me how Americans will criticize America for putting America first, but all these other countries are putting their country first.
Yeah.
It's just wild to me.
Yeah, and I'll say this first. Like, there's a lot I didn't know before this. Now I'm like following this stuff, getting into politics and understanding.
But do you think people don't want to know?
I didn't want to know. I genuinely was okay being ignorant about this stuff, watching my
but
sports.
That's not wanting to know. That's just not knowing what you don't know.
I don't know. I just thought that everything that we're being fed in like the media and stuff was just not worth me parsing through to find the truth. So it was just like, I didn't want to know.
I would say that I thought that our government was putting America first.
Okay, yeah.
I just assumed
that
of course they're going to put America first.
Right.
I didn't know they were putting America third. And so that was a shock to me.
Yeah, I just always assumed that we were such a superpower that we just could help everybody and also help ourselves. Like I just assumed that we were still good. Like we just had the runway to just take care of it all. But then when you really look into the details, like we were going down a death spiral. Like America was not going to be here for a while if we
not going to be a superpower.
Yeah. So it's like when you start to understand the details of why this needs to happen, which a majority of America doesn't really fully understand, then you can be like, okay, it might be some method to the madness. Do you have to agree fully on the execution? No, nobody really understands the best way to do it. You can have some theories and you play it out, but you have to understand if you're here in America, you have to support, hopefully.
I just think that there's a big problem with people think, because I've heard that talk about the execution of business, right? And I understand if you're, in a certain industry or there's a certain relationship, but tough talk gets stuff done.
Right.
And I think in business, I have never seen very much respect won out of just kind, polite talk. I think there has to come hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're not doing.
Yeah. And I want to take that back actually to everything that you have to do now in partnerships.
Yep.
Because like we talk politics a lot on this podcast, but
we do.
I do want to make sure that we don't stray off from where we're going. Yeah.
He gets fired
I just need this to kind of go the right direction. Come on, guys.
We're trying to pull Jeremy in. But
Jeremy's looking at us. I can't say
anything. Sitting out there in the tech world.
But in the partnerships world, do you have to play that game where now, because you have competitors now, like Salesforce, Snowflake isn't the only one out there.
It's the best, but it's not.
But it's the best, but it's not the only one. So now when you're going to these potential partners and you're chatting with them about, why pick Snowflake, how do you balance between trashing your competitors maybe, or, how you set that up?
How do you talk tough?
There's been a few times where we've gotten overly focused on our competition in the past. And then that, I think, slows down innovation because you're so focused on a feature battle of what we're launching, what you're acquiring, et cetera. And so I've been one that has tried to be a voice of reason internally against our competition, to just say customer testimonies is what talks at the end of the day, and really just execution and adding new customers, the products of what we can do. We're now at a point where we can have businesses stake their future by building on our platform. It took a long time to do that, and we're not good for every single technology out there. We're still maturing on our platform as well in a lot of different areas as we've widened our aperture of products we offer. And so you have to find the right ones too, because there are situations where it's like, I could lead you down this path. It may or may not be right. And we have to understand the use case and what they're really trying to accomplish. I think that's where we always start in our discovery for partnerships too. Like what needs to be true for me to bring this over to you, then we can start kind of negotiating.
So would you say the mentality at Snowflake is we're the best or we're still learning?
We're the best. No.
Okay, so
it depends on the context of what you're talking about.
Okay.
Are you talking about data and analytics? Are you talking about I'll just say a few terms that some people may or may not know.
Yeah.
There's data lake,
of course.
data engineering.
Love that.
You know that one.
ML and AI workmodes as well.
Love
just letters.
In ML and AI, there's like 16 different things you can
JKM,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's so many different areas of how people will build their product into Snowflake or how they work with us.
Yeah.
And I think you have to really understand their business first.
Yes.
At least the good people.
But that confidence of knowing, hey, we're the best, that gives you the whole team that confidence. Hey, we are the solution. Now, how do we help you figure that out?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I think I work with a lot of smaller companies right now in the ML and AI side. I think everyone's trying to find the next OpenAI always, and are they going to build on their platform?
Yep.
Because if they explode, that's going to be an amazing customer. And so we're always looking for partnership first, of course customer as well. If we can get them as a customer first, we'll take it and build a partnership. So there's many different avenues how we can work with them. But in that case, it's you have to identify what do they do, how do they do it, what do they need from us, and can we leverage that? Whether it's the product, we can also leverage it as being an extension sales team too, because it's a small company that maybe has not invested in sales and they don't know how to do it, and we can help in those areas. Or even just go to market in general. Maybe it's a technical crew that's still building an early stage company, and we can really help in some areas.
I find Jeremy talks so nice. I'd buy something as well.
Yeah.
You think so?
I don't even need it, but I'm looking at Snowflake right now.
Sign me up.
Self-service. Sign up.
I'm actually curious because this is actually a question for you as well. When you are seeing somebody that's like, for example, you're selling Christianity, you're selling this data warehouse solution. You see somebody that's using a competitor. How much do you need to know about that other religion or that other data warehouse solution for you then to be able to get on their level to then bring them over to what your truth is, basically? Or is it just know what you're doing so well that will speak for itself?
I actually like the way that you said a sentence like, don't be overly focused on your competitors. But I think you have to be competitor aware, but not competitor focused. I think that's a big difference, right? Like, I'm not spending all my days, tearing down Buddhism or Hinduism or, whatever the ism is out there. For me, I think being aware of what would cause somebody to put their belief in that? Most of the time, it's just generational upbringing, and so therefore that creates for me the wedge of knowing what's actually the real truth that they're looking for. What are they finding a substitute in that actually is a substitute of the real thing in Christ Jesus? So I think it's being aware of, and I don't even think competitors is, the whole idea.
Right.
But in Christianity, but I'm peddling this hard. I'm telling you because I do believe in it. And I think for me, it's just knowing my stuff, knowing who Christ is, knowing doctrine, knowing theology, knowing it so that I can communicate it better and better. I'm about to preach my 17th Easter Sunday. Boom. Now, when you get to preach an Easter Sunday, you never preach an Easter Sunday when you're a youth pastor. That's the senior pastor's Sunday ever. So hardly ever do you get that opportunity. That's like playing in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Okay, it's like this is grand final like moments, and you want to know your stuff. You want to know, how do I communicate this message that I've preached now 17 years in a row? How do I do it in a different way?
Right.
And so it's a constant learning of actually helping people see the same thing, but in a new way.
Oh, very interesting. Actually, this is a good topic about, because like you're in a very technical space and you have to tell this story in a way that's, because you mentioned it to me that you're actually selling to people that aren't the most technical people as well, right? Whereas I think the hardest part for an engineer that's working in this space is actually describing the thing that they're working on, because it's so hard to really describe it in a non-technical way. And it's kind of like what you were saying about like your 17th Easter message. The next one you do is like, how do you tell this story again to a brand new audience, right? And a mixed audience, really. Right?
It's an audience that have heard 14 of your Easter messages.
And then maybe
people who have not heard one.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you balance? I'm going to go for you first. So how do you balance that?
I think I always approach it from what interests me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So what am I interested in? What am I really focused on? I can say this because this will come out after Easter Sunday, but we've got a theme this year, which is Jesus Saves. Now, everybody in California, probably across America at some point, have seen the phrase Jesus Saves. They've seen it on a sign or they've seen it somewhere. But I like to take it further, and I like to take it to a a tension point, which is only Jesus saves. So what I want to push is Acts 4, which is that there is only one name. This is Peter in front of the Sanhedrin, who are a bunch of Jewish people who ultimately believe that they are the chosen people, so they don't need a Messiah. And yet Peter stands before them and says, guys, I know what you thought, but I'm going to tell you, Jesus is the way, the truth, the life. He's the only name by which you be saved, which is super controversial today because I think we have a society who like to add Jesus in, who like to complement what they do with a little bit of Jesus, a sprinkling of Sunday or whatever. But really what Jesus is drawing the line of, it's me and only me. And that's the hard line that you have to step. And really focusing on that. So this for me gets me super excited because now I'm energized to preach this because I'm buzzing on the inside of getting this across. And like last Sunday, I went on a whole talk on palm trees and the significance in scripture about what palm is. You should have seen me nerd out. I had textbooks open. I'm like doing deep dive research just to bring a 30-minute message to the church. I spent about 8 hours of research on martyrdom and palms and all that kind of stuff just to make sure I put this together. But that excites me. And so I think if I'm excited, it will resonate.
That's really interesting.
If I'm recycling, it won't resonate.
Because I think the one thing you usually hear in sales is like, know your audience, right? But this is actually a really good point because people can see your passion, right? Like they can see what you're passionate about. And so if you're not excited about the thing that, and it goes back to what you're saying, if you're don't believe in what you're selling, people will see that immediately, right?
Oh, for
exactly.
sure.
100%.
Yeah. So like go to you on the technical side.
And I think it has to go with tailoring your message. Like you would probably, if you were giving your message or even a talk to individuals, you may talk different to another pastor, to somebody on your executive team, to a member of the church, to somebody that's thinking about maybe joining the church. Maybe they're not a believer just yet. You could take the same message and you would alter it to each and every single one of them. And I think that's what some of the best individuals do. They can articulate the same message very different ways and mesh it to this what's in front of you right now and be very aware of the situation. But I think you do that through lots of preparation, like what you had just mentioned. Like you're prepping in different ways to deliver this message, but you know the audience coming in on Sunday and who it is based on which Sunday it is.
You know the audience. I think you also, whether it's sales, product knowledge, when you talk about like crypto and blockchain and like, you get the sense when someone's giving you 10% of what they know as opposed to 100% of what they know.
Interesting,
And a weighty sermon, they're giving me 10%. They know way more, but it's what you leave out that makes your sermon weighty. Because I've now selected the meatiest bit, if that makes sense. And it's not like, if I asked you a question, you wouldn't be able to answer anymore. I feel like with both of you guys when I talk to you, I could dig in for another hour on stuff and you could go, well, that means this, this, and this. But you just gave me the bit I need to know right now.
Right.
And I think that is what puts weight behind what you bring.
It's actually really funny. It's why I like serving on the welcome team. You have no clue who you're talking to when it's a first time guest. You have no clue what the background is. You have no clue, and you there's a lot of. I always start with my own testimony first, but something that even Pastor Luke did when you and I got to speak at one of our Kingdom Builders meetings. He obviously he can talk to a couple at San Jose that may or may not potentially move. He's like, you need to talk to Jeremy. Because, or at least connect and facilitate and know how to use people around you as well. You see it in sales, subject matter experts, a sales engineer, an account executive, or whomever. Like, you use your team around you. It's even the same thing, like, from a faith standpoint. As you build relationships, different testimonies.
I know.
And people that can talk to it as soon as the surface up.
100%. If I meet a couple that's here to cash and dash, then I will go, you need to come and meet with Jeremy. Because that was their plan. But God grabbed their heart. And look at them now. Imagine if they dashed. But they would have missed all of the growth, the impact. And it's even funny just to see the impact of you guys in ministry at the same time as you've been growing in the technology sector. And yet it's almost like there's this junction point where ministry is really taking off. And it's like there's more of those decision-making moments that come ahead. Like, are we going to just keep doubling down on technology, or do we move into ministry? I like those 10-year blocks too that God always has. Okay, what's next?
And to that earlier point where you were saying, like, how much do you need to know about your competitor versus product knowledge or this individual? I think it's a combination. Be aware of your competitors for sure out there, because those conversations may come up. But I think it's also being able to reference testimonies is where I always come back to. Whether it's in software sales, if I'm talking to a retail customer, I can reference another retail customer, the before and after. This is highly applicable to you. Or Cash and Dash, like you got to meet this couple over here. They were thinking the same thing. Hear it from them. Of what happened.
Exactly.
I don't have to be as knowledgeable, about with the Bible and just in faith in general as Pastor Adam for me to continue to drive a conversation and a point with a couple if it's their first time here.
Exactly.
Whether it's this Sunday or another one.
Exactly.
You can kind of use the people and the relationships around.
Yeah.
Do you have a set of like I forgot what it was, but there's a set of like flow of questions that you ask when you're meeting a person for the first time. But is there something that you guys, because you're in the welcome team, like you have to, some people aren't talkers. Some people you come to are like, hey, how you doing? Good. And then it's just dead. Like, is there a set, because this is actually useful. It goes to your question about like, what do you do? People are socially awkward at work. Like, what are the sets of things that you may
just
drive the conversation?
Just don't ask yes or no questions. Like, how are you doing? Good.
Yeah,
I'm learning that with my kids. How was school? Good.
Yeah.
I was like, give me something. What was the thing you liked the most about school today?
Exactly.
And now she has to think, because I'm trying to get my daughter recalling of what happened today. She's still young. She's 5 years old, so one word answers are fine, like where she's at. But I'm trying to get her to think like, what did I like about school today? What was fun?
Exactly.
What happened? What was my experiences? And asking her all these different discovery questions is what I call them. But don't give them a yes or no, because they'll say yes or no. And then you got to keep fishing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's exactly that. Start every sentence with what, why, or how.
Okay.
And then you won't get a yes or no.
That's really good.
So what did you like, or how did you hear about it, or where did you come from? It can't be yes or no.
And do you both of you guys, I would say, a little bit more extroverted in terms of your nature. Do you guys you're a little bit more introverted, you
Super introverted.
Super introverted? Yeah.
Okay. I consider these moments being on stage.
Oh, okay.
It takes a lot out of me. Like, I prepare, and like, when you first ask me, like, hey, do you want to come up here and speak in front of everyone? My first answer was going to be no. I don't.
Right.
But I know the importance of it, and I know this is beyond me, what you're trying to get out of, so I rise up to the occasion.
Right.
Yes.
But it takes a lot of prep for me. I'm not naturally extroverted.
Okay.
Oh, cool. So you overcome like internal fears?
All the time.
Yeah.
I have to get in the right headspace, and it's but I think that's
which
good.
is fascinating because like you execute so well.
I was gonna say this is not editing, guys. He looks this confident. We didn't edit this
like, on stage, on mic, whether the crowd's 1,000 or 3.
I think I get so nervous though sometimes I put that much more preparation into it because I know how important it is.
Yeah.
It's not the fear of me making a mistake so much, but if I'm being given the opportunity to present in front of a customer, speak in front of a group of people here at church, like somebody has identified me as somebody that has something to give.
Yes.
And so I want to honor that ask. Is how I think about it.
I like that.
And so I think it's more so fearful, I don't even know if I want to say fearful, but I don't want to let that person down that has thought about me to intentionally come in and have a conversation with whomever it may be.
It's interesting this because there's like, I think I hear a lot of people have this imposter syndrome. Like there's fear because they feel like, man, I'm not good enough, or why would they ask me, right? And I feel like I'm seeing this a lot on, people in even in church, right? Like they're like, oh man, that's terrifying to speak on the microphone or in front of people, right? And just going through their internal dialogue and the fear. Yeah. But I actually wonder if there is I don't want to say it this way, but I wonder if it's a Holy Spirit issue. Meaning you need more Holy Spirit. Because one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. And often we put self-control in the category of, maybe lustful thoughts or temptation. But what if it's emotional thoughts and controlling negative thoughts? What I need more Holy Spirit to help me control my self-doubt, my self-evasing kind of thoughts that cancel me out from the opportunities. You obviously have a relationship with the Holy Spirit where that wins out, and you don't say no and you don't run, you say yes anyway. But I'm wondering if that's like just more of a prayer that we should be praying over ourselves every day. Holy Spirit, fill me today so that I don't miss the opportunities you present to me.
Oh, I love that.
100%. The biggest war I go through consistently is always up here.
Right.
It's always self-doubt. It's always those areas, and you have to arrest those thoughts.
Which is stunning because that's what Paul says, take captive every thought. Exactly. He doesn't just say take captive the lustful thoughts.
Exactly.
He says take captive every thought.
Exactly.
Make it the context is make it a slave, which means make it work for you.
Mm-hmm. I remember the first time Kim asked us when we came back after COVID, like, hey, you two need to jump on and be pre-service hosts up there on stage. I was like, yeah.
You do it online, you do everything. Yeah.
So Mariah and I had a conversation. She goes, yeah, I don't want to do that either. And it's like, well, it's interesting how both of us say, I don't want to do that. And somebody sees an opportunity for us to do it. So I said, we need to go beyond ourselves. As much as we don't want to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
We need to do this because somebody has seen something we don't see. And that's a trained thing from us. It's so much easier to say no.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah.
Well, Arun,
Yeah.
what's that like for you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm also in the Jeremy's camp. Like these things, like I'll do it, but it's just a thing I have to muster up and say I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of like internal kind of nerves and fear before I actually go and do that thing. Like I'm constantly thinking about all the things that can go wrong, and I need to make sure that I understand every situation.
Like
So I'm
scenarios.
prepared. Yeah. So I'm prepared
Yep.
to go into that situation. I can answer these questions, or if I do fumble my words or something, like I need to. I have this like thing about, it's kind of imposter syndrome. It's kind of, I just don't want people to think I'm dumb.
Yeah.
Like I don't want people to think that I don't know what it is I'm doing.
Yeah.
So like it really just comes down to just being prepared so that doesn't happen.
Is that the same, like, say in a church setting, like you guys are very well known here, in a church setting and a work setting, if you're doing a team meeting or something like that? Does it translate across boards, or is there other environments that are more intense than others?
I think my work situation is far worse than like anything outside.
Like because the consequences are worse?
I don't know if it's the consequences. It's just like
I can't fire you.
Yeah, you guys all faith, love, grace. Grace, mercy, right?
I think you should go find another church.
You're letting me know now. This is how it happens.
I feel a disconnect card out.
Yeah.
That's a disconnect card.
Oh no. Nobody getting the ideas. No disconnect cards. No, that's interesting you say that, but because I don't know. I think it's at work. Maybe it's just because that is like your livelihood, your career. Maybe it is the consequences of people. It's not that you're going to get fired, but you just don't want your coworkers to think less of you because you just feel like you're here. It's almost like you're on a team, like you're trying to fight for an NBA championship. You don't want your teammates to lose trust that you can do the job needed to get you there. And you don't want that train leaving without you. So I think it's just like so much more fear in that space for me. That was like when I was like getting in here, like it's kind of like lower down as you kind of grow in your career. And then you realize everybody's kind of feeling this way. Everybody's kind of feeling this way.
I feel like that's what I want to say, because I feel like everybody feels that.
Yeah. When you realize that, and people aren't thinking about you, they're thinking about themselves.
100%.
You have freedom to do anything you want. You go into a room. I think that was the biggest unlock for me socially, was just realizing when you go into a room, not a single person notices you're there, by the way. They're all thinking about, how do I live? What are people thinking about me?
Thank you. That was going to be my follow-up sentence. Is like what you just articulated, what you articulated. 100% of people feel the same. Everyone's in their head. Like I've been doing public speaking now for 20-something years, and I still, on the way to church, I'm thinking through, okay, I hope this translates. I hope I don't fumble. I hope everyone's self-analyzing.
Right.
I don't think you want to lose all of that, because I think that's what really makes sure you bring your best, and you need God. Because it would be terrible to get to a point where it's like, I got this, God, you take a seat today. You know what I mean? Like, no, I want you, God, to show up.
Right.
So I think there is a good humility in that. So you don't want to lose it, but you also don't want it to be at that unhealthy level where it stops you from doing it.
Right.
So I think the tension of you just articulating how, man, I don't want to, but I will, because I don't want to miss the opportunity. I think that's the healthy tension.
Yeah. And I actually think when a lot of people say they don't want to do something, they're just, I'm afraid to actually do that thing. I'm afraid to do that thing. And like, there was this great quote by Will Smith when he's talking about this idea of, so I'm actually doing this soon, but he did a skydive in Dubai across the Palm Jumeirah Island.
Oh, wow.
And I'm actually doing that. I'm going to Dubai in like a couple weeks. My wife wants to do it. And like, I've just been like, we'll do it eventually. And so we're finally doing it. We booked it. But he talks about this idea of God puts the greatest things on the other side of fear. Yeah. And it's like when he talks about his journey about going up, the drive over, he's afraid. He's in the plane, he's afraid. But he's like, what am I afraid of? Like this, I'm driving in a car, nothing to be afraid of. I'm going in a plane up. But the moment you should be afraid is the moment you step out of the plane and then you jump. But then he talks about there's like this moment of bliss, like after you step out of the plane, where it's just free. You're just like this free like feeling. And I think that's what most people feel when you go up on stage or you go do that thing that you said you didn't want to do, you're afraid of. It's kind of like it just goes, like you just do the thing, and then you realize it wasn't that big a deal, really, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and then
usually
you
goes away when somebody positively responds.
Yeah. You just need good support.
Or it's like, Sunday afternoon, we're like, oh, we're done.
Yeah. Oh, what a feeling! What a feeling when you do that, right?
When you're done.
Yeah.
Like on the ground.
Yeah.
Parachute open.
Yeah. By the way, this is my last podcast. Just know I love you guys.
How morbid would that be? And we're laughing.
It's like there's a lot of things to be afraid
Hey, you gotta find joy in life.
Hey, he went out happy.
Yeah, he went out happy. Yeah. But I will say there was a question in from an audience, and the audience question was, how would a socially awkward person talk to another socially awkward person? But I think the advice that you guys gave is really good. But yeah, I feel like if you want to reiterate for the audience.
Well, I think if you've got two socially awkward people, you're up the creek. No, I'm kidding. No, I think everyone is naturally socially awkward.
Mm-hmm.
There is definitely seasons for me as leading Vive Church where I've been dealing with a lot of hurt and rejection from people, and yet all I would love to do after a Sunday service is honestly go and hide in the green room. Just I've got to prepare, or I've got to whatever, but I have to overcome that and know who I need to be in that moment to be a connector and a pastor and a shepherd, and I have to fight the feelings of rejection to go and meet new people. And I think that you understand it's not just hard for me, it's hard for them.
Yeah.
Imagine what someone feels like walking into an environment for the first time and not knowing anybody, but yet they get to talk to someone who's not thinking about themselves. They're trying to make it comfortable. And so I think you've got to do business within yourself internally and serve others. You don't get to put your fear as a protective shield and hide away, because it could be somebody's one moment.
Yeah.
It could be their one opportunity to literally come to Christ. And who knows if it's the message or a conversation before the message that does it.
Yeah. Do you have anything to wrap that kind of segment up? Because this is really important stuff.
No, I think that's 100% is getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
To allowing the Holy Spirit to work through you. I think it's always easiest to say no, go hide. I used to say that as an introvert, I need to go hide in a hole after and like recover because I don't get energy from doing public speaking or approaching a new guest for the first time or even a prospect in a sales standpoint. It takes a lot. But it's a disservice to everyone and even yourself to run away and retreat in that sense. And so I think
I like that sentence, get out of your own way.
Get out of your own way. And I think it for me, how it resonates is like, get out of your own way up here. Because I have all my initial thoughts of how I want to do stuff. And it's more of like, arrest it, get it out, and focus on.
That's so helpful.
On front of us. It's one of the things I love being on the welcome team. It reminds me every Sunday. Get out of my own way or my own things. There are people here looking for something greater, and this is a very finite amount of time to connect with someone.
So good.
And it's a muscle you have to build, by the way. If you're out there, you have to get out of your way and do it, and you'll just get better.
I think Arun would be great on the welcome team.
I think so.
On the welcome team? I need to get back to. I really like production, though. I know we were in the back.
Were very good at
production. I love production. It was fun.
I started on the bump-in team because I didn't want to talk to anyone. I said, I can push stuff all day.
That's right.
To bring stuff on stage.
No verbal cues needed. I lift heavy things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember the first time with production team when they said in between services, you should go out and like talk to people and then come back in. Like, wow. And I was like, this is not what I signed up for.
I signed up for isolation.
I was promised behind a computer. What is this socializing? This has been a great episode. I think a lot of useful skills, a lot of really cool things to kind of understand how it is that you do business. But before we leave, I thought you gave me some really good advice about just the AI space in general and how you viewed it. You were talking about, we were talking about the AI wars. We talked about it on the podcast before about, the hardware space, the consumer app space, but there's this data space. And so I'd just like you to, give it to...
There's data wars?
There's data wars. And I feel like you have some insight on this before we wrap up about the data wars.
When we were talking about that, everyone's looking for the next AI company, whether it be and just for anybody listening, when people say AI and ML, there's probably 16 different facets of that topic. What are they talking about? Is it deep learning? Is it generative AI, which is what we all know today, which is reshaping our culture from a consumer standpoint, how we operate and get our jobs done. But the whole aspect of what we've always talked about is he who owns the data is going to win. And I think everything always goes back to the cloud wars or the platform wars. So Amazon has been consolidating data into their cloud for over a decade now. They've been doing it.
Because the AI models are getting thirstier, right?
Well, they need to come to the data. A lot of people think they're going to bring the data to them sometimes. Right. Not all the times. I think we've seen a maturity where it's bringing the AI, whether it be a model or the product or whatever it's solving, bring it to the data, because that's what people need to operate on.
Yep.
And you have companies like Snowflake, Databricks, the 3 cloud vendors, other tier 2, tier 3 cloud vendors as well, that have been consolidating data and telling a message to these big organizations, bring it all in. It's easier to do stuff with. People that have been on that journey for 10 years are actually better suited for their AI journey, however that looks for their business. Whether it's to just make efficiencies, be more effective, or provide consumers and customers a better experience.
Right.
And so I always tell people, one, define exactly what you're doing, which parts of AI, how is it applicable, and then how do you get access to that data. And that's why I think from the partnerships why I like it, because Snowflake is at the middle of our ecosystem. But if you look at any of those other names I mentioned, they're also at the middle of it, and they're all saying the same thing, is bring it to the data, we have it, and this is how we can bring this into production.
Wow.
I think everything is a pipe dream if you're doing something else, because you're fighting a whole battle that you're already going up against an organization that is not about creating silos again, as best they can.
Yep.
And I think from an AI standpoint, defining what you're doing and coming to the data.
What do we think? Can I ask another question?
Please.
Just I know we're running out of time, but what does this look like? Because you're data warehousing. You've got data storage. But, in a couple of pods ago, we had Anto on who is talking about quantum computing. Is storage still valid in a quantum world?
Yeah. The data has to be somewhere. It has to sit somewhere.
What if it sits out there in the collective data, right? Because right now what data do is it focuses it into one location so you can draw from. But if you gave an analogy about finding the exit of a maze. You do it one route at a time, where quantum computing does all routes at the same time. How does quantum computing not just search the whole web at once and draw the data from anywhere it possibly could be, even if it's fragmented, not in one spot?
Yeah, I think I think people are still learning, and I'll kind of go from iterations. You had companies like Oracle and IBM. They stored it in one area. As more companies hit the market and did things a little bit different, you started to see all these silos and marts because compute was limited and storage. It was at that time tightly coupled together. Just like most of our desktops back in the day, you had to get another RAM stick, because as you got more storage, you had to add more because your compute was limited at that point.
Oh, I lived in the floppy world. Yep.
Exactly, right? You had to have we had all these external hard drives, thumb disks, we had all these different ways to do that. Enterprises were doing the same thing,
right?
Until the cloud vendors really came in and said, "Well, we can scale our server business way better, and you'll just essentially rent this out from us." Now you have all these ways to consume it faster too. Storage is getting better, and I talk from a standpoint of enterprises, because they have trust with their customers. They have to do so. I speak about it from that world where we talk about decentralization in your world. We're talking about a little bit of two different things of what we're looking at. And there's it's applicable to companies in different ways, I would say. And so I talk about it from the data and analytics side. And so with all this new computing power and engines and even tools like OpenAI, there are so many new avenues of how to do business. I think people are still learning. Like with the quantum computing, not everybody has access to that.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so there's probably a few doing it really well. Yeah. It's like I used to tell people, like Netflix. Everybody is selling to Netflix their platforms. Very few people are actually touching their internal algorithm stuff. That one is homegrown, and no vendor is really touching those things. It's the same thing at financial service companies like Capital One and some of these others. They have their homegrown stuff internally. There are still vendors that aren't touching those today, and it'll be a long time before it happens. In some scenarios, and I think for other companies, depending on what their risk tolerance is to innovate and be ahead of the pack of their industry, it looks different. But even for those core areas, nobody's touching those still.
Wow.
at least from what I've seen.
Wow.
Which I have only one view though, from my standpoint.
No, I think it's really good insight, and I feel like we could keep going on this, and I have like a lot of follow-up questions. But
let's go out for drinks.
We'll go out for drinks.
We'll sign up on the pod.
We'll socialize. We'll figure it out. We're gonna take these skills.
We'll have you do karaoke.
Get me
that.
out there.
Get over your fears.
Yeah. The fear will be you guys listening to me sing. That's for you guys.
Oh, I'm terrified.
Well, it's been a great episode. I appreciate you coming on. I think this is really useful advice, and we'll have you back on the podcast in the future.
100%.
All right. And so if you're out there,
he had a little fear moment.
Yeah,
just deal with it.
I gotta get over myself.
Maybe.
Maybe. But if it's your first time listening, please like, share, subscribe, comment, all of it. Share it to somebody that hasn't listened to before. There's a lot of good advice on here. People might find it really useful. And stay tuned for next week. Cheers, guys.
Pleasure.